listening to the Jersey Guys Podcast, the show that talks about hard rock, heavy metal, AOR, and West Coast music. In-depth conversation and special guests are always on tap, so settle in and turn it up. Now, here are your hosts, Tom and Mark.
Hey everybody, this is Mark Ballo from the Jersey Guys Podcast. I'm here with my co-host Tom Coyne, as always, and today we've got special guest Larry L.A. Greene from the band Fortune and also Harlan Cage, two cult favorite AOR bands for sure. So we're going to talk to him about his whole career, and let's get right into it. Welcome, Larry. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks for asking, and welcome yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to us tonight. I guess let's jump right into the Fortune time of your career. And let's go back to like 1982, which I guess is when you met the Fortune brothers, right?
That is when I met the band. The writing that I did with Roger Scott Craig, he was already in the band. And so I joined the band and thought that at that time the songs weren't that great. But when I first sat down with Roger, keyboard player, we kind of had a great collaboration, and so it was a forgiven. I went ahead and joined.
So now when you joined up, you guys for the next couple years until the debut hit in '85, you guys just wrote a bunch of songs and played a bunch of shows?
We did. We played all around. We mostly played in the LA area, Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, places like that. It was a lot of fun. We were like a lot of bands at that time, man, nailing your flyers on the telephone poles by the whiskey.
Oh, okay.
Offering people pictures of your first band. If you come see us, please. You know, it was a crazy time in LA at that.
That was kind of the beginning of the whole like Sunset Strip days, huh?
It was, yeah. Wild and nutty. So
I got out there. It was 1992 was the first time I got to LA. So I got to I was a little late to the party, you know?
Yeah, well, it's still kind of going on. I mean, I don't know. You know, that scene was really heavy and hard and heavy in the middle 80s, early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And it went through mid 90s, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen it in its heyday, that's for sure. So talk about the first album. It came out in 1985. I mean, it's pretty much considered like an AOR classic. I mean, it's kind of a master class in AOR, right, Tom?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that album, the writing process and even, the dealings with the record label.
Well, we were fortunate to have quite a bit of time when we played live the songs we wrote, which was a real advantage, more of an advantage than we've had recently. The songs came together. Like I say, Roger and I wrote a couple of songs. The first song we wrote was a song called All the Right Moves, which we put on the Fortune 2 record. It was actually for a film. It was a Tom Cruise film, All the Right Moves. That's the first song we wrote. That's when I realized I could write with Roger. Some of his changes. I come from kind of a streety blues background. Roger's a classically trained Irish piano player. And so the two of us made a good mix. And then with Richard in there, who's real edgy and, he's kind of a hot rod rocker from the days of those hot rod days around LA. So it was a good combination. It was a good chemistry. And as far as the label, they tossed us around a little bit. MCA had a new subsidiary called Camel. So they put us on Camel to see how we would do. There's only 3 bands on that label. It was Giafria, if you remember them.
Sure.
And Night Rage, you probably remember.
Definitely.
The rest, so the 3 of us were on that label. It was a subsidiary MCA.
And they kind of dropped the ball right from the beginning almost, right?
Yeah, Camel had some serious problems. And Bruce Bird was the owner. They all had some problems. So many problems that MCA dissed themselves, and that's what happened, basically.
And then they went under pretty quickly thereafter, right?
They did, yeah, they did, and left all 3 of us, ourselves, Giafria and Night Rager, kind of out in the desert. To speak.
And that was kind of the end of the band at that point, right? I mean, you didn't really ever recover.
I mean, yeah, that's right. The band really couldn't recover too much from that. We tried to keep it going a little bit. Roger took some gigs. I went into film situations that I had already started even before Fortune. I had met Giorgio Moroder back when the Olympics were happening in '84, so I'd already done some stuff for him. So this goes before Top Gun, and then there you go. That's what happened with the band. We couldn't keep it together after the label dropped us. there was no money. We actually never knew the band was as popular overseas as it was until recently, because we never got any money. We never got paid, so we didn't know how popular it was. So,
what was the basis of your sound? Because always had such a distinctive sound. Even your vocal phrasings are very distinctive. Who did you guys draw as a reference or influences to record this first album?
God, I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes, you look back and you wonder who you're like. There's an early Foreigner, maybe. More likely, like, Pink Floyd, even Jethro Tull. God, I love that band. So,
Me too.
We're going way back here.
Me too.
So there you go. I mean, a lot of that stuff we draw from, lyrics and things like that, and the way things are structured. But, you try to stay original with it all. So we took it all in and put out what we thought was going to be original, and nobody else would sound like us.
It really has withstood the test of decades, that the band has still got the same distinctive sound from the mid-'80s right up to 2022. You could put on the brand new record, which we'll talk about in a little while, and the first record, and the sound is so distinctive. And to this day, I've never heard a band, while your band has been an influence for a lot of bands, I've never heard a band that has really copied the Fortune sound like so many bands have been copied. So you cut out a niche that really has stood the test of decades.
Wow, thanks for the kind words, man. I appreciate that. So, we tried that. We become like a musical version of a continuing Marvel comic.
Is the chemistry between you and Richard such that after all these years, when you got back together, and again, we'll talk about the two more recent records, that when you guys write and you're in the studio together, that Fortune sound just is what comes out?
I think so. We have a lot of fun together, so that's the basis of let's get together, because it was always kind of a kick. He's kind of a cool guy to hang out with, and that was always part of it. We hadn't seen each other for years. After the first record, he had asked me to come and sing with him at a venue called the Arena out somewhere. I don't know, somewhere in Simi Valley, California, someplace. And I went out there and we did some Hendrix stuff, and then we played a couple of Fortune songs just to. People liked it a lot. Everybody kind of remembered it out there. There was a little reunion there, and that kind of started us getting back together again. We thought, well, we should play a few gigs and see what happens. Of course, locally, the music we play is not real popular. You're hearing so much, I don't know, more dance stuff out in LA, it seems like, but hard rock stuff is still in the bar rooms and still in the radios when somebody's driving a car, that's for sure. So, still there.
And if you don't mind me asking, how come Roger Craig did not continue on with the band on the last two releases? Because I always felt he was a very integral player and force in the band, although even though without him in it, the two new records sound very much like the original band.
Well, it's not like we didn't want Roger. Roger and I are good friends, and I talked to him beforehand. I asked him to do it. He told me that he was retiring from the business because the business of music, he wasn't able to separate from the actual playing of the music and writing of the songs. The business was it drove him nuts. He couldn't handle people copying the songs he wrote and working for free and everybody expecting to have music for free. I think he was just trying to drive him nuts. And he said, I'm retired. So I asked him, even on this last record, I said, please, come on, man. You're not going to be a part of the new Fortune record. Everybody's anticipating it overseas. And he said, no, I'm retired.
Wow.
And also he came into a bunch of money. So what the heck, man? I mean, I get it. It's a shame because he's got a beautiful keyboard setup. And, I might even hit him up they've offered me a Harlan Cage. I might hit him up to see if he wants to do a Harlan Cage record.
That would be great. That would be great.
I thought he would. It'd be a lot of fun. We always tried to separate. I always tried to separate those two bands in my mind. I don't know if people did, but
I think people did. I mean, as a fan of both, I did, because it did have a different sound from Fortune. So it was, for me as a fan, it was easy to separate the two out. I mean, it's the same style of music, but definitely it wasn't a Fortune clone band, at least not to my ears.
Right. Well, without Richard, Fortune, and Mick as well.
Right.
The band didn't have quite that same edge. It had a different kind of vibe to it. So, good. I'm glad it's separated.
So could we talk a little bit about how Harlan Cage got together and how that came off the ground? And the transformation from Fortune to Harlan Cage?
Well, after Fortune, there's a guy in Sweden, Magnus Soltervist, good man. And
Yes, we know them both very
yeah,
well.
okay. So Magnus came to me, approached me, and met me somewhere here in Hollywood. He said, "Do you want to put together a record?" And I said, "Well, I might. Let me see if I had done a few things with Roger, brought him in on some film and TV stuff that I was working on. So I said, well, I'm still in touch with Roger, and we're still writing songs. So, and he said, well, that'd be great. And so basically, we got together, the two of us, and we decided we're not going to do a Fortune record. We're going to try to do a separate record. And it was originally called Big City, which just wasn't, it was too generic sounding. So I came up with the name Harlan Cage and thought, oh, that's kind of poetic. Let's use that. I remember where I read that name, but it was some beggar man, preacher, thief was fitting. So basically, that's how we started the band. You know, we kind of just wrote the songs and put it out.
And that was 1996 when the debut came out, and you guys put out four records in total up to 2002, right?
That's right, yeah. And then we did a best of as well, so that's out there.
So I found on the second album, that's when the sound really for the band started to take off. You got involved with a guitar player named Billy Leifsgang, who I'm very familiar with. He did records.
Billy Leifsgang.
Yeah, he's a tremendous player. He did a record with Glenn Hughes and a number of other people. How did you get hooked up with him?
No, he was a friend of Roger's. He's a great guy. I mean, he's a Liverpoolian. I don't know if that's where he's from, but he's got that Cockney stuff down, which is great. I mean, between all of us, I remember being in the studio and Roger having to interpret what Billy was saying and me having to interpret what Roger was saying with his Irish accent to the engineer. We're all speaking English, and nobody could understand a word we were saying to each other. But it was great. He's a great player, and I love playing with the guy. He's a lot of fun. Roger met him, I think, when he was with Nina Hagen, which was right after Fortune. He went on the road with Nina Hagen, and that kind of really made sure that the band was sealed in the coffin once he left. So that's how Roger met Billy.
Yeah, I felt on that album, that's really when the Harlan Cage sound took off. And I remember at the time there was a lot of buzz about it with Billy's guitar playing added to the mix of the songwriting and the vocals and the keyboards. I thought that was when the band really made this. Yeah, I think you developed your signature Harlan Cage sound on that second album.
That's great to hear. I love that album. That's the Double Medication Tuesday record.
Yes.
There's a company in Vegas wants to re-release that on a vinyl, which we might do, and we might put another couple of bonus tracks in there if we can dig them up. So.
Speaking of bonus tracks, there was a song on there called No Turning Back that was on I have the Japanese press of it, which was a great song. Why was that left off the original record?
I don't know, that originally was an instrumental. And I thought, what a cool thing. And Roger said, let's just write some lyrics and put a melody on there. And I asked Roger to sing the verses. I wrote the lyrics and the melody. I said, Roger, why don't you sing the verses? I'll just chime in on it. And I thought it was a cool jam. It was basically, that's what it was a jam. That's why we left it off.
Right. All the albums had Japanese bonus tracks. So the first one had Too Many Heroes, which was another song I liked a lot that was left off the... You made me have to go out and buy all these expensive Japanese these Japanese pressings.
Yeah, exactly.
The completist.
I am the ultimate completist. Since you've never met me, I am the ultimate completist. So we move on to Forbidden Colors. What could you tell us about that? Another album that I'm a big fan of.
We decided to do it a little more rock. We kind of stepped it up a little bit. We decided because when we were with Fortune, Richard, it was always a harder rocker guy. He gave us an edge that we didn't have in the first two Harlan Cage records. So we decided, well, let's kick it up a notch and see if we can put together a little harder rock record. Which I think we did. I like that record as well. I think it's good. There's a few songs in there that are, everybody else they think of it. So
No, these records went down really well at the time. I remember it wasn't a great time for hard rock in the United States, but in Europe and Japan, these records were very highly thought of, not only by myself, but many people. I think these are actually, out of the four, that the second and the third were my two personal favorites of the four.
Oh, yeah, we've heard that from the critics. So, there are quite a few out there, I must say. And most of them have kind words to say. So.
Yeah.
Too
Well,
bad.
like Tom said, I mean, it was a tough time. We're talking, 1998, 99. It's in America. It was a really tough time for like melodic rock and AOR and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, but everybody, Tom and I included, and plenty of our listeners for sure are big, AOR aficionados and stuff like that. So I mean, these are albums that are very highly thought of for sure.
Yo, thanks, man. Appreciate the kind words. We enjoyed doing him, and we didn't try to change ourselves to try to fit what was going on. I don't think we could have, even if we tried. It's like a leopard might be able to change his spots, but he's still going to be a leopard no matter what you do. It's going to look the same. So,
well, that was very much appreciated by a number of, actually not a great number of bands at that time, because there were a lot of bandwagon jumpers onto alternative and grunge, and I think it actually, over the course of years, it endeared certain bands over the decades that never did break their ranks or prostitute who they were. You've always done that. You never put out a grunge record.
No, we try. Like I say, it wouldn't be too honest. I mean, you are who you are. That's the way it's got to work. So anything else is less than honest, and it doesn't really.
And it comes across in the music, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So if we could talk a little bit about Temple of Tears, which was the last studio record of Harlan Cage.
And I like that record a lot. There's some songs in there I really did dig, but it was a strict studio project. We had given up all hopes of playing live, which we never really did. We were kind of like the Steely Dan of that scene, just Roger and I writing songs. And I think Temple of Tears had some good songs on there. It was a kind of a strange time, so I remember writing songs kind of around what was going on at the time. New York Morning was one of them, and there were some interesting songs on there, but it wasn't as well received. We had jumped labels. I think MTM went out of business, or they just moved on, and we were with Atenzi at that time. Once again, it was Magnus put us on Atenzi at that time.
Yeah, that didn't last too long either, that label, unfortunately.
Atenzi, no, that was Here Today, Gone Tomorrow.
That's right. It was a quick one. So, and then after that fell apart, we just let it go. Roger and I just let it go. And we released a best of pretty much on our own, put it up on CD Baby and a few places. It still sells. We still get requests for it. And the best of course, was the ones we liked and not necessarily the ones that people who bought the records liked. So, of course, then we could have done the very, very best of the people who liked the records and best of.
There you go.
Could have kept that going for a while, I suppose. There's enough songs. Jeez.
So fill in the blanks for us from the last Harlan Cage to Fortune 2.
Got about 17 years there, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, everybody was kind of doing their own thing. I personally don't really know what Richard and Mick were doing. I think they started a blues band with the original bass player that we had on the first Fortune record before Bobby Birch came on board. And this was after Bobby died. He was with Elton John for years, Bobby was, and a good friend of ours. And I think he passed away, and they formed a blues band. I worked in films and TV. I kept that going ever since Top Gun. So it changed a whole lot. A whole lot of what you do is buyouts now. And I found myself doing a lot of, outro songs and barroom songs, people driving in cars, wherever they wanted a rock song. I was happy to do it. The licensing has always been something I like to do. Put music to a film or television is really an exciting thing because they spend so much money on the quality of the video that it's pretty cool to see a song on it. So that's basically, I don't really know what Roger was doing during that time. We kind of lost touch for a few years. And then actually, once somebody approached us, I can't remember who approached us to play a live gig in Nottingham.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that it wasn't 17 years because it was around 2016. I think you guys did the Rockingham show.
Right. So
it was a little bit before that, before the album came out, the second album actually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. It was 2016 was the gig. So we got back together to play, and it was with Roger. This was back in 2014 or 15, something like that. And then we got together. We played a few times, and then he, came into a bunch of money and decided he was going to retire. And we figured, well, we might as well just go forward with, Richard and I decided, let's just go forward and have some fun. Let's play some gigs. Why not? We'll have some fun with it. And we went over there, and like I said, we had no idea how popular the band was. People were singing every lyric.
That must have been a great reaction.
If I forgot, Yeah, as I say, it was great. If I forgot the lyrics, I could just watch people mouth back to me. So it was really good.
Well, that's I've heard that. We've had some guests on here on the show, and we've heard that from so many people reading interviews over the years, that the Firefest shows, which eventually turned into Rockingham for the last few years, people say when the bands get over there, and they never realized, how much that people enjoyed and appreciated their music, and they just thought it was, this is kind of a nostalgia thing or whatever. But they saw the fans there, and they're just blown away.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's cool. It was a great time.
Now, you guys went back again the next year to play again too?
Yeah, they invited us back, which we were told wasn't a normal thing. So we went back the next year and opened up for Vince Neil, and that was a kick. See him, It was a lot of fun. We did 2 years in a row
Now,
at Rockingham.
yeah.
And that's when we released an EP. We decided, well, let's throw 4 songs on a CD, see if we can make a few extra pounds. Yeah. Trying to get out of London, So,
Yeah.
And then that's when Frontiers approached us. So.
Well, I was going to say that because the 4-song EP are 4 songs that were on 2, right? Fortune 2.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So how did that all come about? There was, a couple years between playing the Rockingham shows and then to you guys putting Fortune 2 out in 2019 on Frontiers. How did that all come about? It was just Frontiers got a hold of one of you guys and said, hey, you want to do something?
One of the guys that was the head of Rockingham Festival approached Frontiers and said, hey, you should see these guys. We had them 2 years in a row. You should listen to what they're doing. They put out an EP at the last Rockingham, the second one we did, and we sold out on it. And basically when they approached us, we told them we had put out a CD where if we were going to do another record, we'd use those 4 songs. And they said that's okay. They weren't crazy about us doing it, so we cut it off. I think I have a closet full of those EPs somewhere, hanging out somewhere. I don't know where, but we agreed not to sell them. And they brought us on the label, and don't really know I don't know what they were expecting to get from us, but I think we surprised them that we were still able to hit the notes. What can I say?
Oh yeah, no, and Tom mentioned before, these last 2 albums they're just as good as the debut from 1985, and the quality's there. I love the songs. Talk a little bit about the song Freedom Road, because I love that song.
Where we knew that it was right, like a light against the night, to be reaching for the stars. With an appetite for sky, we knew it would be alright if we only took what's ours. There are so many kinds of hunger in this world, and when the moment comes, we're satisfied that urge. Take me down that freedom road. Take me anywhere the thunder rolls. Where you feel the rumbling in your soul.
Freedom Road came about. It was a riff that Richard had. He'd been jamming it with Mick and whatever bass player he was before I even. And actually, when he played it for me, and I said, "Let's do something. Let's give it to me." I put the melody and the lyric to it, and first played it on acoustic guitar, which sounded really funny. But then he took over and he rocked out. And that's a fun song to do. It was fun to do live because people really get one of those driving in your car songs, isn't it? So
Oh, definitely.
yeah, we enjoy doing that. And it's all about the songs. That's really the basis of it.
Yeah.
A lot of the songs on that Fortune 2 record we had written years before, and that's why Roger is on that record in maybe most of the songs, because I had written those with him, and they just weren't part of the Fortune record, and we released it just like that. Nobody had heard a lot of those songs. Songs like What a Fool I've Been, which I liked on that record. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I had noticed when I was looking at the back of the CD when he wrote co-wrote a lot of the songs.
Right. And those were written before he retired. I use that word. It's so funny to hear it because I don't know how a musician retires. What do you do?
Right. Yeah. You think it's always in your blood, right? You just always have to keep doing it.
That's right. Yeah. What are you going to do?
What about the song "Living in a Dream World"? What could you tell us about that?
Well, that's an early jam song. We used to play that at what? It was at a place called the Central on Sunset Boulevard. It later became the Viper Room, which is famous for River Phoenix dying out front.
Oh yeah,
of all things to be famous for. But we played that song many times, and that was a recording somebody did of that song live. I don't think we touched it.
It's live. It's a Japanese bonus track. Cool. Yeah, which again, you made me buy a Japanese CD, but that's okay. It's the Japanese bonus track. And I love the song. Another song that I was like, why did they leave it off? But now I understand the genesis of the song.
Right, sure. That had a great keyboard solo.
It sure did. It really a great song. The whole album is so good, and I love the cover of it too because it just kind of brought back the whole feel of the first album, but kind of like with a more modern twist with the glove hand, and it was really a great throwback album. I was thrilled to get it, and it didn't disappoint me one iota. I absolutely loved it.
No, thanks. Yeah, we purposefully did a cover that we knew would tie into the first one, so people would remember us and think, "Oh, here we go, it's the same band."
Yeah, it was only 34 years later, right?
Sure, yeah. My son did that painting. That was really cool.
Oh, really? No, it's great. I absolutely, I think it added so much to the band coming back. I know myself, when I saw it made me like excited because I felt like, oh, wow, this is, what you're going to get when you see a cover like this. You don't have to say, like, what do they sound like now? Or is it still,
sure.
You kind of get the feeling that it's going to be part 2 of that first legendary album.
Yeah.
So let's 3 years on, just earlier this year, the third Fortune album comes out, Level Ground, and let's talk about that. How did that all come about? Because you did mention that the second album had a lot of older songs that were written with you and Roger and laying around. Were all the songs from the new album completely brand new?
No, that's a ground up effort right from the beginning. We decided if we're going to release another record, let's wipe the slate and see if we can just pull off a great rock record. And we started it was a weird time to start. We had started it like right kind of during the pandemic. Everything shut down around, I don't know. Well, you're here in the States, so what was it, like March or something?
Yeah, like March of 2020.
March of 2020.
Right, and so we couldn't even get together in rehearsal studios. I think you could have like 1-2 people in a rehearsal studio. So it was kind of a lot of going back and forth, like, hey, I like that riff, let's do this and this. But I mean, it kind of worked out. I had some ideas on it. Richard had some ideas, so the two of us pretty much wrote the whole record together and then got together. Once we could get together, played down the songs a few times. Wound up going into the studio with it. So, we've never played the songs live, which is a disadvantage when you're doing rock, but it was fun to do. Even in the studio, we had a good time,
Yeah. Was it one of those things where you mentioned like during the pandemic, you couldn't really get together? Was those things where you kind of digitally sent each other ideas and tracks and stuff like that?
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's what we were doing, emailing back and forth, MP3s, and singing into my phone or singing, get a little setup. It's one of those things, We both have little home studios. You can't do production in there. You certainly can't do live drums, which is always that's part of the contract you sign with Frontiers. You won't use a drum machine.
Okay.
Or we'll break your legs or whatever they do over there.
Well, they're into putting out power metal albums now, so there's no place for drum machines.
That's right. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. It's got it in capitals.
You got to have Fortune with the double bass.
That's right. Absolutely, no drum machine.
The next album. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, that's right.
Talk about a couple of the songs on that album. I mentioned before, I think we started recording, that "Orphaned in the Storm" was a real favorite of mine. Do you have anything story-wise about that song?
The cars, a rain so deafening, like the sound of 1,000 broken rosaries. Another week of Mondays, a shade of stormy gray, drinking highballs of rye and ginger ale. Two drifters
It was one of those songs that kind of progressed over a year. Yeah, Orphaned in the Storm is like being abandoned. The thought of being abandoned. Some of the lyrics on that I enjoyed writing. I liked the opening of it. The sound of rain on a rooftop, sounding like 1,000 broken rosaries, things like that. I thought, wow, that's really cool and colorful, and I think people would dig it. But basically, it's a song about being abandoned, it was a good time to feel abandoned in the middle of that pandemic, because
that's true.
Even if you couldn't stand being in the house, you go outside and it's pouring rain and whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things. But I enjoyed Richard put a great rock feel to that song, and I enjoyed writing that with him on that. All of them, a lot of some of the really hard rock stuff, Richard comes through on. He did on the first record too. So, he's more of a hard rocker than Roger. So basically that's why the album is a lot harder rock, I think, than probably what we would have done if Roger was in the band as well.
It's got a little bit of an edge to it, even more so, I think, than the last record, the new one.
It does, yeah. It does, sure. Yeah,
if you could talk to us a little bit about one of my two favorite songs on the album, I Will Hold You Up.
Caught at being human and all of that. You try and shut the world out, the world comes roaring back. I hear the edge of a lawyer, it's there in your voice. Find a safe place to fall, and I will take you from the noise. When life turns porcelain and fragile, I will hold you up. Far away from the snake that rattles, I will hold you up. Feeling thin as a fishing line, I'm feeling numb to the touch. You ever feel like a drowning child? I will hold you, I will hold you up.
It's wild. That song is I felt that was speaking to me. Some songs you spend a while writing and rewriting, and then some songs just kind of come to you, and that just kind of came to me. And I remember, I think my wife said that to me, in a moment of despair. I don't worry, I'll hold you up. And I thought, well, that's a great title. And I didn't tell her, I'm going to use it, because I didn't want to share the publishing. Forget that. But no, I'm kidding. It was a cool song to do. And that's pretty much it. It was a song that came really quickly. And so I put it down, whatever came to me. And I had an idea about doing a song like that, the chorus speeds up slightly. If you notice, I don't know if you do or not, but the chorus, we hit the verses are a little slower, and the chorus speeds up slightly. And because it was that kind of, eclectic mix, tempos and things like that in that song, I had asked Steve if he would play on it, and he said, oh, absolutely. So
talk a little bit about that. Steve Porcaro from Toto fame, of course, played on that track. How did that all come about?
I've known Steve for years. Actually, his oldest daughter is my niece.
Oh, wow.
So we've written songs. I wrote a song with him on the first Harlan Cage record called Let It Rain. And he and I have worked together many times, and a few things, mostly some TV stuff, film stuff, but he's a great player. And to get him to play on that, and basically he wouldn't even take any money for it. Offer him money on the session, he wouldn't take it. He said, no. We've returned favors before. I've sing a few demos for him, and he play a few things for me. So he played on a song I did for Josh Groban, actually. So wow, it's great. He's such a great player, and he's got great ideas, and he just sparkled that song. He really made it sparkle. So I'm really happy to have him on the record.
He really is a great player. I was just recently on YouTube looking at some old Toto live shows, one of which was from Japan in 79. And his playing, it was just, it floored me. I kind of forgot how good he was, in that band, because he was kind of like not one of the premier guys in the band in terms of like name, but when I watched them, I was just blown away at how what a great player he was.
and he hears such great changes.
Yes.
And his inversions and things like that.
Absolutely.
So he's a very schooled guy, man. He knows theory really well, way better than I do. So it's a pleasure to work with, I'll tell you that.
So you touched on it a little bit earlier. Let's talk about your, I guess you want to call it your day job, or so to speak, your movie and your sound work, your film stuff. How is that something? You said you've been doing that for a really long time. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I mean, after I did Top Gun, we did another record on, I sang on the soundtrack to a film called Over the Top, which
Sylvester Stallone, yes.
Sylvester Stallone. I call it the armpit movie, but it was the arm wrestling movie.
Yes.
We all thought we were going to make a ton of money, and that I did, because it had Van Halen on there. Well, it had some great people on there, and basically the movie was not that great in my mind. I could kind of hear the toilet flushing before I walked out the door, so it was one of those things. But honestly, it's become like a cult thing, especially in Japan.
It has.
People play that movie all the time. So after that, the next film I did, I kept going in film. I did a song on a film called Mystic Pizza, which was Julia Roberts' first, and that was the first film that I did away from Giorgio, and it was also the first. They were starting to get into, instead of royalties, you were starting to get buyouts going on, and even if you were an AFTRA or union person, you had to work non-union, you had to work under the table, or there's too many people behind you willing to do it. So that's how the music and film industry is today. It's trickled down to the point where it's still good work if you can get it, but everything's pretty much a buyout. You don't do a lot of residual stuff these days unless it's a featured song, some girl running slow motion on a beach and your song is playing. You'll get a little more money. And that's about it. But other than that, it's, I have an agent that licenses films, and a lot of the songs I do, outro songs, and I've done some transition and bumper songs and things like that, but enough that it keeps it going. So, and I don't have to go into refrigeration or air conditioning repair or something like that.
Are you actively still writing? I mean, besides just the music from films and stuff, are you actually writing songs, like stuff that would maybe be used for Fortune or?
Oh, I don't think so. Most of the stuff I do for any kind of media, it's not really, it doesn't really translate down to Fortune, I don't think. I mean, there might be ideas that I've used. It seems like I've pulled ideas from some of the stuff I've done, of course, and lyrics and things like that as well. Most of what you do is like, it's just out there, and it's just written to whatever the scene requires, things like that.
Right.
And that's okay. I get to do it, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that, blessed. So.
Now, am I right to say was the Frontiers contract that you guys had with Fortune, that was a 2-album deal? Is that right?
It was, yeah.
Has there been any talk from Frontier's side or from you guys having interest in doing another Fortune record?
We haven't really talked about it. I don't know. I would love to do another record with Roger if he's into doing it. I don't really think he would be. Like I say, the folks from Vegas, 20th Century Music, I think it is, had wanted to re-release Double Medication on vinyl, and that, to him, that made sense because you can't really copy it as easily as you can a digital format. So maybe he thought he was going to make a little more money on it or something. I don't really know. As far as Frontiers, they haven't talked to us about doing another record. We actually wanted to do some more shows, but a lot of stuff got booked and canceled. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Oh, okay.
Can't keep up with what's happening.
I mean, things are starting to get a little bit better, but it seems like, it's still not really back to full force yet.
That's right, yeah. And as far as festivals go, people got to be more careful, I suppose. So.
Yeah.
I get all that, but it's a drag, especially for younger musicians coming up that are depending on live shows to make some money, because you wind up giving away.
That's a death blow to these young bands. I feel awful for them too.
There's so many good bands here too, and I just don't understand how they're living in closets and whatever.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Girlfriends are supporting them just like the old days.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else, Tom, that you wanted to talk about?
The only thing I did want to talk about was the DVD release, which also I'm a big fan of. Were you guys happy with that, the way it went down? And I was just watching it the other night. I thought the band sounded great. Just curious what your thoughts were on that.
It was okay. I'll just without making any excuses at all. It was a tough commute to that gig.
Oh, yeah.
And then we didn't, we played the next day afterwards. So basically there was not a lot of movement for a DVD. I actually didn't want to do the DVD. I told them, let's don't do this, guys. Give us a day off before the gig and get through the jet lag and all, and maybe we could do it. But we didn't have a chance to do that, and they insisted on doing the DVD. So basically, when I watch it, I see myself, hitting some high notes and holding on to the mic stand. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of getting
it's a tough flight. I've been there. It's definitely an ass kicking flight, and if you do that flight, I guess when you're 20, 25. You bounce, but I know I was there last time. I was around 40-ish, and you need a day or two to get to feel like a human being again.
Well, to film it, other than that, it would have been fine. But I think it came out okay. It was a difficult gig to hear yourself because the ceilings were so tall. It's such a cavernous room that I remember even a sound check, Mick would hit a snare drum and it would come back to you like 3-4 times.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and then they, of course, they always say, well, when the people are here, it won't be,
Right.
The ceiling was too tall. Unless there were people on the ceiling, you were going to hear that. And it was difficult to hear, but I think the DVD came out okay. I was surprised, actually, how good it came out.
It's really good.
It sounded in tune.
And it was nice to have something, with the band memorialized on a pro shot show like that.
Yeah, and they did a good job filming it, and everything that Frontiers did with that was good. The cover, all that was fine. It was just the band being able to pull it off after the long travel day and to make it look exciting. I don't know how exciting the DVD is. It's been a long time since I saw it, to be honest, probably a year.
No, but it's real good.
Okay, thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah,
honestly.
Hey, I think that's everything, Larry. We appreciate this talk tonight for sure. Everybody, Larry L.A. Greene from Fortune and Harlan Cage, thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate all the kind words, and we'll rock on, man. We'll see what happens next time, huh?
Excellent. Well, hopefully there will be some new Fortune music in the future.
Well, maybe Harlan Cage music too,
or
if you could get
Roger
to get motivated.
There you go. Hey, appreciate it.
Sounds good.
We'll talk to you soon.
Guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care. So, hey, this is Mark Ballo from the Jersey Guys podcast. We just talked with Larry L.A. Greene from Fortune and Harlan Cage. How do you think that went, Tom?
It was very good. It was very enlightening. There's a guy that I've always wanted to talk to because I've been a big fan for 37 years.
Yeah.
And we had talked about this a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and I think he's just a great guest to get on because in the AOR circles, he's still very relevant. The band is still relevant, and the legacy of Fortune and Harlan Cage, I think, has stood up over the test of time. And the brand new record, Level Ground, for anybody that doesn't have it, if you love the first and second Fortune, you're going to love this every much as those two. And it was a terrific interview. A lovely guy.
Yeah, no, it was good. Like you said, I mean, Level Ground just came out 2 months ago. I mean, here's a band that's got a legacy from 1985 with their debut album, and here they are. Just 2 months ago, they released their third album in 36 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the quality is there. That the last two albums that these guys put out are just as good as that classic debut from 1985. It's great stuff, and I was happy to talk with them. So I think this went really well. Anyway, we'll be back at you guys with a new episode soon. We hope you enjoyed this one, and talk to you later.